Let's get across to Turf Moor, where Manchester United play tonight against Burnley. Gary Neville is there for us. Gary, I don't know if you heard some of that conversation. How does this, the Ruben Amorim decision, first of all, how does that sit with you, 24 hours or so on?
I thought after the press conference at Leeds United, I thought that he was in trouble. I thought after the Wolves performance and the fans staying at the end to boo en masse, I thought there was, the sort of clouds were circling after that point. But then obviously after the press conference, it was plainly obvious that, before the Leeds game, wasn't it? Or was it after the Leeds game? I can't even think now. It was after the Leeds game. That was basically sort of, I think, the writing was on the wall. What did surprise me, I thought they might leave him in for a couple of weeks just to work things out. But I thought he was done after the Leeds press conference. When you take on your bosses in any single job in the world, you're likely to lose your job pretty quickly.
Any more than us on this next part of the solution for Manchester United, Gary. But what we're sort of hearing is that they're looking for an interim now to take them till the summer, when there'll be a permanent appointment made. So on that basis, has Darren Fletcher basically got tonight, and maybe the cup game at the weekend as well, to show that he should be one of those under consideration? Yeah, I mean, I think that they've got to bring someone in, I think, who's done it before. I think that what they can't do is imagine that this is going to go well. I was put in a football club for 4 months and told to sort of steer the ship to shore for the rest of the season. It doesn't quite work like that. And Manchester United have had a very challenging experience with Ralph Rangnick. It went well last time they put Ole Gunnar Solskjaer in. All I would say is, as long as someone basically has done it before, got a bit of experience, can handle the media, can handle if maybe results don't go their way, they need to get to the end of the season, because I think the next appointment is obviously crucial. But there's still a lot to play for this season. I do think if Manchester United can get De Ligt, Maguire, those lads back from obviously AFCON, and Bruno Fernandes fit, who we might be fit tonight, they've still got a chance of achieving Champions League football this season. But things are going to have to go their way. But it's looking like they are going to appoint someone to the end of the season and then look at what would be a more bigger name manager at that point. One thing I would say is, even if someone comes in right now and has the most brilliant 4 months, Manchester United still need to make that decision at the end of the season to appoint an experienced manager who's world class. So in the interim, if it's not Darren Fletcher, would you support a return for Ole Gunnar Solskjaer?
I would not. I mean, I think that there is an element of... we saw this at Liverpool, didn't we, for like 25, 30 years, when they were going through that period where they weren't winning, and they sort of... You almost go through cycles whereby, and United have done this for 12 years now, they put Ryan in charge 10 years ago, then Ole came in charge, and you go back to the old boys, and then you go for a new one, then you go for a more... And it's almost like a cycle, it's almost like a movie that we've all seen before. And Groundhog Day. So, look, what I do think is that Ole is someone that absolutely loves the club. He knows the job. He's been in the job. The other names that are being mentioned, obviously, Michael Carrick and Ruud van Nistelrooy, these are really fantastic people. I played with those guys for a lot of years. They love the club intensely. They get the club. But still, they're still going to come under a lot of pressure in this next 4 or 5 months if results don't go their way. So, look, I think they have to be ready for that. Whoever's going to get it out of those three that are being mentioned, I wish them all the best, because it's a tough role.
OK, Gary, thank you very much for the moment. We'll be back to Gary to hear about United going into tonight's action in 6th place. And we think that top 5 will be enough for Champions League. Manchester United are almost there. They want to be in the top 4 to be comfortable, but I suppose the danger is they're only 4 points off 14th place as well. Let's bring in tonight's guest, Jamie Redknapp, alongside Tim Sherwood, a title winner and a Premier League manager with 2 different clubs as well. Welcome along to you both. It's a busy night for us, but let's kick off with this Manchester United conversation. Some say gone too soon, Tim. Some say not soon enough. Where are you on this?
I think Ruben's decided when he wants to leave the football club. I think he's got what he wanted. As soon as he spoke out against the hierarchy, I thought it was inevitable he would lose his job. There's no way you can do that. It's impossible. I really wanted to like this guy when he first come into the club, the charisma he had. He's obviously talked his way into the job. He's a very, very good talker. We've seen that. Great. Sporting Lisbon, done fantastic. I think he underestimated the Premier League. You can't come in with just one style of play and just say, I'm going to be so stubborn, I'm going to stick to that, and I'm not going to be flexible enough to change it. No matter what he had. He's learnt about the players. He's obviously not liked them, too much. Having said that, we've just looked at the table there. They're not too far off it, so it's a good opportunity for someone else to go in. But I think Ruben's, he's made the decision. I think it's up to him. I really believe that Man United did not want to get rid of this guy. I think they would have kept him till the end of the season. They would have assessed where they were after that. But I think once you talk out, like Enzo Maresca has done at Chelsea, I think both managers have got what they wanted, and that is to leave the football club with a nice payday.
Interesting. OK, so you think he's maybe forced Manchester United's hand. And maybe that's possible, Jamie, if you can say things against your leaders, your bosses, if your record is better than Ruben Amorim's was. Was this the big problem for Ruben Amorim, for all his likeability in press conferences and his stubbornness, I suppose, to his formation, that he just didn't get the results to back it up?
Absolutely. And we gave him a lot of leeway because of what Jim Ratcliffe said. When Jim Ratcliffe said, no, we are going to give this guy time, we all went, OK, well, fair enough, we'll give him time. But like Tim says, he knew what he was doing, he knew what the exit was, and he got himself out at the right time for him. I don't ever believe he understood the assignment, if I'm honest. I remember doing the first game, it was Ipswich, they drew 1-1, and he came over to talk to us. I don't think he enjoyed it because Ed Sheeran came over and I think he was a bit of a... He didn't quite like what was happening. And I remember looking at his face and he said, all I've done all week is so much press and this isn't really what I'm used to. And I'm thinking, if you don't know what Manchester United is all about, it's one of the biggest clubs in the world, you are going to do a lot of press and you better get used to it really quickly. And I felt from that moment, has he really enjoyed this job? And it hasn't been the case. I think the system thing, Tim, is spot on. And when he turned around a couple of weeks ago and said, well, if I would have changed the system, then I would look weak as a manager. No, you would have looked strong. You know, I have no problem with that system. Conte's made that system work. You can make that system work, but you also have to adapt. And if you're playing 3 at the back and the team's got 10 men, you don't need to keep 3 at the back. You shouldn't be losing away at Grimsby. A lot of the results that he had were absolutely disgraceful. And normally, any other Manchester United manager would have been sacked long time ago. But because Jim Ratcliffe gave him that peace of mind that he's safe, but Tim's right. He knew what he was doing. He knew where the exit was and he took it as quickly as he could. The story was, wasn't it, that he'd had that conversation with Jason Wilcox before the game at the weekend and they'd had a bit of a disagreement and he'd reacted emotionally to suggestions of sticking to 4 rather than 3 at the back. And I'd be interested to see what Darren Fletcher does tonight. This is Ruben Amorim compared with every other Manchester United manager in this Premier League era who's taken charge of 20 games or more. And his record, again, is not favourable. 31.9% win ratio. 10 even fewer than Ralph Rangnick, who had a really tough time there. Interestingly, Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is up here, 51.4%. He is currently the favourite for the job. Might he find his way back in at Old Trafford?
It looks that way. I mean, if Ruben had a 51.8% win ratio, he'd be third in the league. You know, it just shows you, what the state of the Premier League at the moment. I think there's 2 outstanding teams, Man City and Arsenal. I think the rest of it is mediocre. I really believe that. And I think evidence of that is where Manchester United are at the moment. I think Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is the front runner.
The front runner for what terms of just coming back as an
interim manager, yeah. My choice would be Michael Carrick. I just have a feeling about Ole. Ole took them to second place. Let's not forget that. But it ended badly for him. And he just... When I saw him in front of the press or on the touchline, and just look into his eyes, and he looked like he was a rabbit in the headlights. He looked like he was scared of the job. I'm not saying he was. There was just my feelings when I look at Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. I think Michael carries himself a bit better. I think...
And you've been down that route. It doesn't normally work out going back again, Tim, does it?
No, but they need something for the interim period. They need something, and I think they're right to turn to a Manchester United person.
Let's kick off with Manchester United, who begin the post-Ruben Amorim era away at Burnley. Darren Fletcher is in interim charge for this one, but beyond that remains undecided, with Ole Gunnar Solskjaer and Michael Carrick in the frame to become caretaker manager until the end of the season. So our football correspondent Rob Dorset has been across developments today. So Rob, how close are we then with United making a temporary appointment?
A temporary appointment, an interim appointment until the end of the season. Look, that's Manchester United's preference. And I think we'll talk a little bit later about why that's their preference and why they want to leave it until the summer to make a more substantive appointment. And we told you yesterday that Jason Wilcox, their director of football, had held some informal talks with a number of candidates, with Michael Carrick and Ole Gunnar Solskjaer right at the forefront. It seems that they are the favourites. And my understanding is that there have been no more discussions today because the entire focus at Carrington, the training ground, and at Old Trafford has been to prepare the man in the middle of your screen there, Darren Fletcher, for his first game in charge of the first team. Big night for him. Jason Wilcox has been working with him very closely, so they didn't want to get distracted and start lots of talks elsewhere. But I expect those talks to ramp up tomorrow, and we could well see something finalised before the weekend. But the timing's interesting because if Darren Fletcher does very well tonight, and with Manchester United having this big FA Cup game on Sunday against Brighton, will they want to leave Darren Fletcher in post for a little while? Is he going to be involved in the next setup with the interim coaching staff? I think that's an interesting one. My understanding is that a lot of the discussions tomorrow will focus on how that dynamic might work. Is Solskjaer going to be the main man with Carrick working alongside him? Certainly Carrick has had more experience of coaching on the training field, which would kind of make sense. But look, he's done a great job at Middlesbrough. He's a manager in his own right. Is he going to be happy playing settle and fiddle to Ole Gunnar Solskjaer? Is there either of these guys that say, look, if we do well, if we get you Champions League football, I want some sort of guarantee that I'm going to be given the job longer term. It's all of those sorts of discussions and those areas which I think need ironing out over the next couple of days, and then United have that decision to make before Sunday about who's going to take charge of the team in that big FA Cup third-round match.
Yeah, so Darren, got Carrick or Solskjaer. Who do you think will get it? Who should get it?
Well, as Rob said, first and foremost, the man in the middle of the screen there, Darren Fletcher's got a huge opportunity, I feel. But if they are in discussions with the other two, then maybe he's thinking, well, I'm just going to do what I need to do, be interim manager for the first one or maybe two games. But the question is, out of the other two, I feel both are a little underwhelming in terms of why you're getting rid of Ruben Amorim for interim manager till the end of the season, and then you look beyond that as a permanent fixture, someone else. Ole Gunnar Solskjaer is probably the standout of those two, although I do feel that it's maybe a sideways step, even a backward step for Manchester United now already.
It is a perfectly fair point, actually. They'll get a lot of criticism, Manchester United, for going back to the old boys. Solskjaer wasn't a huge success. You know, when he was sacked back in 2021, they'd won one game in 7 and people had had enough at that point. Going back to him, going back to Michael Carrick, who was first a coach under Jose Mourinho, is that the right thing? Look, I think what you have to point out is that Manchester United didn't want to sack Ruben Amorim. They didn't have plans to, and it happened quicker than they expected because of that fundamental breakdown with Jason Wilcox, his boss, the director of football. They had to move, and they decided that his position was untenable. They had to move quickly. So they've been left in an awkward situation. There'll be plenty of people say, you should have a plan for that. Well, they have got a plan for that, but it takes time to enact it. And they can't afford to make another mistake. They want to get the next managerial appointment right.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Ruben Amorim should still be in charge. And I think there was a lot of opportunities. I mean, 15th in the league last season. It was terrible for Manchester United, even losing to Grimsby and then his outburst to the press. But it shows you go against the owners, the powers that be, Jason Wilcox, and that's the final straw, and you go. Are they looking for someone, not a yes man to a certain degree, to come in till the end of the season? I don't think, as Rob said, I don't think even if any of these three are in charge and they get Champions League football, I don't think you'll see these in charge next season.
I think you're right.
Interesting, extremely sad news there. Right, OK, now we're going to get back to Manchester United. Back in action tonight, as I mentioned, for the first time since Ruben Amorim was sacked. And Rob, longer term, who are we thinking as the Manchester United manager? Darren said, you know, no matter how good these three do, or two, or, you know, whatever the setup is, doesn't think they'll be looking long-term for them.
I think there would be an awful lot of criticism of Manchester United's hierarchy if that was to be the case. It would feel like a backward step. And they're being criticised already for looking at these guys as caretakers and interim managers as a backward step. But as I say, the unique circumstances that led to Amorim's departure, I can understand why that happens. Longer term, they'd be looking for some of the biggest names in world football to take on this job. And Manchester United is one of the biggest jobs in world football, even though they're a little bit in the doldrums right now. 6th in the Premier League, could still make Champions League football, of course. But the reason Manchester United want to wait and they're going for this interim option is because they think there'll be a lot more high-calibre candidates available in the summer than there is now. And they're right. It might be very difficult to get Oliver Glasner out of Crystal Palace right now, but in the summer, he's out of contract. Marco Silva is out of contract at Fulham in the summer. Iriola at Bournemouth is out of contract in the summer. You've also got the likes of Kieran McKenna at Ipswich and Roberto De Zerbi at Marseille, who I think will come into the mix. But then you throw in the World Cup as well. Everybody talks about Thomas Tuchel. We know that he's going to come back into the domestic game at some point, or maybe the European game, and he will look for an elite club. you can understand that Manchester United might be interested in him. What's his contract situation with the FA after the World Cup? Mauricio Pochettino's with America. Julian Nagelsmann is with Germany. All of these managers, you've got a much stronger chance of getting them in the summer than you have right now. And also, crucially, it'll be cheaper to get them now. They might not have to pay compensation if these guys are out of contract. And let's not underestimate the finances at Manchester United right now. So Jim Ratcliffe has overseen a massive cost-cutting operation. They've had to pay Ruben Amorim £10 million to him and his backroom staffing, more compensation for a manager that didn't work. They don't want to be wasting money if they possibly can't. So longer term, the financial situation, the availability of candidates, all that explains why they'd like to get an interim in now until the end of the season.
So Rob's mentioned some big names there. Who do you think could fit the setup then at Manchester United? But also, would those big names want to come in as a head coach?
I mean, first and foremost, when Rob mentioned the finances and then he talks about the £10 million payoff that Ruben Amorim's getting, it emphasises and amplifies what a poor decision it is in my eyes. I think they should have just stuck with him because these guys are not going to be cheap either, whoever comes in a short-term basis. But for me, Thomas Tuchel. I think no matter what happens with England in the World Cup, whether they win it or whether they don't, I think we won't see Thomas Tuchel as the manager of England next season. I think he's a club manager, but I think he's taken the opportunity to manage England. Hopefully they go all the way and win the World Cup, and he just calls that a day there. And if they don't, I think we'll be looking elsewhere as England supporters anyway. So for me, Thomas Tuchel is the perfect candidate to replace him.
But you did mention, didn't you, that you said the words yes man, OK? So someone who's
That's not Tuchel.
Yeah, no, it's not.
That's my point exactly. So how would that work? Could you see that working?
Yes and no. I think Thomas Tuchel will obviously have, if this takes place, he'll have the interview and he'll let them know by any means necessary that he is not a yes man and he will want to run the club. He won't be coming in as a head coach. He'll be coming in as a manager. And I think if the powers that be at Manchester United, Sir Jim Ratcliffe, Jason Wilcox, whoever it may be, accepts that, then he's the perfect candidate. He's the perfect man. Look, whether it's a year, 18 months, 2 years, whatever he lasts at Manchester United, that is a manager that can bring success back to that club.
Rob, do you think that the club could change their stance and bring in a manager opposed to a head coach?
Look, you've hit the nail on the head here of what the big issue is for Manchester United and what they've got to assess between now and the summer. What sort of manager do they want? Do they want somebody that's going to come in and fit within the system? Maybe a Kieran McKenna. Maybe a Roberto De Zerbi. Because I think you've got to say that Oliver Glasner and the way he's managed Crystal Palace would suggest that he might not fit into the structure at Manchester United very well and wouldn't necessarily be very keen on the idea of having a director of football above him who's going to talk to him about the tactics and the team he's picking. So I think that's a key decision. At the moment, it's very, very clear that Jason Wilcox has all the power at Manchester United. It was basically a sack him or sack Ruben Amorim situation a few days ago. Their relationship had become untenable, and Sir Jim Ratcliffe made it very, very clear, and Omar Barada, the chief executive, that no, we're sticking with our system, we're sticking with our man. Our director of football is really, really important to us. If they keep that mantra going forward in the summer, and I expect them to do so, I think it's going to be very difficult for some of these big name, big personality head coaches, managers, to come in and take the reins.
I just want to add to that because you mentioned him, Rob. It's Kieran McKenna, and Ipswich supporters won't like me saying it with my affiliation at the club, but I've been a big advocate of Kieran since he took over at Ipswich. I think he's an unbelievable manager. I do. Yes, he didn't handle it particularly well in the Premier League, but that was no fault of his own. That was the squad he had. There was levels, and Ipswich weren't quite there. Works alongside Mark Ashton at Ipswich, and they've got a close relationship, director of football and manager, head coach. I think if they do want to go down the route of head coach, it's a big step up, I know, but I, for one, think Kieran McKenna can handle it.
OK, brilliant. Thanks, guys. Well, look, all eyes on Turf Moor tonight as Manchester United travel to Burnley, one of 8 Premier League games. That one is an 8:15 kick-off. Live coverage will get underway from 6 o'clock on Sky Sports Premier League. Plenty more to come here on the Premier League show, including Arne Slot reacting to comments that Liverpool are boring, and the Premier League's newest manager sets out his principles for Chelsea.
Ya saltan 1K y el barrio. Es determinante cuánto daño puede hacer el conjunto de 1K, sobre todo con Granero en esas primeras de cambio en la salida de escalera. Así que esa parte del partido va a ser absolutamente clave para el equipo de Iker Casillas. Por cierto, felicitar porque ha venido una buena afición de 1K.
Tiene las pelotas, Gerard Noya encara, sigue Noya, dispara, Arnalot.
80 paradas
ya para Arnalot. Gil Vidal ataca desde la derecha el número 9. Gil Vidal con el centro. Buena pelota. Arché. Con la rodilla le pegó. Pues es el que desatasca un poco el partido, ¿no? Con centros. Ojo ahí a ese golpeo. El remate. ¡Gol! Marc Valiente. ¡Gol! Del Barrio. Marca Marc Valiente. Esa banda izquierda que es terreno de los cañonazos de Granero, a la que tengo un mínimo de espacio, le pega Granero. Bueno, pues es decirlo, y ahí lo tenemos. El tema es que el remate le ha salido centrado. Abraham, buena pelota, banda derecha. Vamos a ver qué hace ahí Fran Rodríguez. Se mete en el área, sigue Fran. ¡Qué bien, Fran! Se va de dos, el remate fuera.
¡Chicos!
A ver si acierta. ¡Claro que
Mira
sí!
acá.
Busca el Barrio el segundo gol. Arché. Arché para Gil. Gil que le puede pegar a este Gil. Buen recorte. Gil al
¡Dios!
palo. Le manda Arché.
¡Dios! ¡No! Madre mía, qué parada. Y a centímetros del remate, ¿eh?
No, la reacción ha sido impresionante. El disparo. ¡Madre de Dios!
¡Ay!
¡Otro que vuela! ¡Otro más! Que está la pelota para John de la Cruz. La quiere levantar. Vuelve a pegar la pelota en el cuerpo de un jugador del Barrio. El remate con la puntera y acaba deteniendo a Gerard Vacas. Será córner favorable a 1K. Bueno, a ver.
Gol doble.
Gol doble. A ver, saque de banda. Balón puesto en movimiento. Intentaba rematar Marc Valiente. El remate. ¡Gol! ¡Baufer! ¡Gol! ¡Del Barrio! ¡Le pegó con el alma! ¡Baufer!
Y es…
¡Penalti
¡Madre
normal!
mía lo de los penaltis!
¡Penalti normal! Y el que quiere hacer el 0-3 es el número 4, pega Valiente. ¡Vaya cañón! ¡Gol! Ahí están, Arnalot y Vacas como candidatos, como guardametas, y también Marc Valiente y Pau Ferojo la recuperación. Tiene la pelota al Barrio que puede sentenciar el remate. ¡Gol!
Knockout.
¡Gol!
¡Let's go, Barria! Ponme el 5, ponme el 5, ponme el 5.
El cambio del partido ha sido radical en los últimos 10 minutos. El balón que lo tiene. ¡Ojo!
¡Ay! Jaimitada.
Marca de nuevo el Barrio, gol de Fran Fuentes. El equipo de Juan Arroita, que no ganaba un encuentro con esta tranquilidad, entre comillas, al final, con un margen tan amplio, con 2 goles dobles que han hecho pasar el partido del 0-3 al 0-7.
Paufer, ha costado, pero por fin ha llegado esa victoria tan deseada con goleada.
Ha costado mucho, pero bueno, le damos emoción hasta el momento final, recta final, y ahora, pase lo que pase con Pío, nos lo jugaremos contra ellos.
Eso te iba a decir, pase lo que pase con Pío, la semana que viene, o ellos, o tú, o tu ex equipo, o tú.
Bueno, o el Barrio o ellos, pero sí. La vida, yo qué sé, no sé, son cosas muy raras que suceden, pero ahí estaremos. Ahora estoy en el Barrio, así que espero que gane el Barrio.
Enhorabuena y a disfrutarlo.
Gracias.